it's easy to think that you have an open mind. And so in this video, I want to talk about what actually is an open mind and being open-minded to new ideas. And is there a chance that maybe we're not so open-minded sometimes? You know, we're only human after all. Like, we can easily fall victim to these mental traps or problems. So before we start this video, I have a huge video right here on YouTube. It's over an hour long, basically. Shows you how to raise your vibrations, how to change your reality, manifest and upgrade yourself, essentially. It's a huge amount of value. It's all here on YouTube. The link's in the description. So, like I said at the beginning, everybody can fall victim to thinking they know everything or thinking they know more than they actually do. And this is very easy to fall into, incredibly easy actually, and everyone, including myself, at some point or another will have this sensation, the idea, the feeling that you know everything, or the feeling that you know more than you actually do. So really, in spirituality, consciousness, science, and really any area of life, it's so important, in my opinion, to constantly step back and step outside of your beliefs, your ego, your memories, and even what you think you know, and be consciously aware and ask questions, and especially ask the following questions. So ask things like, am I sure this is true? Or could this also be true? Thinking about other perspectives, other opinions, other beliefs, and other ideas. It's so important because it's very common to get into this kind of narrow-minded thinking where you think you know the truth and everything else you kind of, almost before you've even heard it, you kind of disregard it. You think, oh, there's no way that could be true. Or I know for certain this is the truth, or this is my truth, and nothing else can possibly be true. And you've got to remember that in many cases your beliefs were at some point formed, right? We didn't just come out of the womb and immediately have this belief system and structure of what we thought the world is. At some point those beliefs were formed based on experiences, learning things, hearing other ideas from different people. So if they can be formed from the external world, then it seems very silly to latch onto this belief that you've only formed from the external world and not take any other external information in later on, even if it's 10 or 20 years later on. Just because you think you know something doesn't mean it's actually true. It might be not true. It might be that you don't know the whole story. And another thing, especially in the last year, that we should really be aware of is that just because something seems obvious, just because something seems like it could be, that's the only explanation, that doesn't mean it is the only explanation, and it definitely doesn't mean it's true. But this also goes the other way round. Just because something seems impossible, that also doesn't make it impossible, right? Sometimes what we think is impossible is actually the truth, and what everyone believes is wrong. And then sometimes it's the other way around. What everyone believes is right, and what a few people believe is wrong. So truth is basically immutable, the fundamental truth of something. We need to remember that because it's so easy to get latched into one group or one kind of mob mentality. And this applies very, very specifically to what's going on in the last year, where, let's say, a majority, not a huge majority, but a majority, believe one thing, but the truth is actually the opposite. And this happens, you know, like I say, quite often. It's important to be aware of it. So, in my opinion, the best way to be, and this is just my personal opinion, is to be constantly open-minded. Always to have your beliefs, of course, but every time you hear new information, every time you research or learn something new, try and do that in a completely unbiased way. Obviously, that's much easier said than done, and some would say it's impossible. But try and, especially when you're having a conversation with somebody who has a different belief than you, it's very important to keep your beliefs almost out of the way and actually hear them and then ask questions to them as if you were kind of a neutral third party, instead of hearing someone else's belief and then immediately thinking, no, you're wrong, and here's why, and then it becomes this debate or this argument. Now, there is a place for that, but it doesn't really help. It doesn't really, in most cases, it doesn't really help either party. It just makes the polarity even stronger. So try and, you know, be critical. I always try and do this as much as I can. Obviously, I make mistakes and sometimes I can't do it. But I try and be open-minded and think, what if I am wrong? Like, what if I am actually on the wrong side? And, you know, try and really logically use all faculties, right? So logically think about it, critically, also creatively, and think about it in a way that logic might not explain. This goes particularly to things like quantum mechanics, which typical left-brained logical physics can't explain the things that are happening in the quantum realm. Things that have been proven through experiments are happening. You know, like the separation between humans and the DNA that was taken from them in this experiment. 200 miles, I mean, I've spoken about this before, right? But there's no physical explanation for how their DNA 200 miles away can be influenced by the person's emotions. That in modern physics, that there's no explanation for that. That can't happen. But obviously the experiment did happen and the results did happen. So you have to think in both logical terms and also creative, open-minded terms, because sometimes both can be true. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you think about this. Do you think it's correct? Let me know in the comments. And remember to watch my huge video on how to raise your vibrations. This is essentially a summary of what I just said. Basically, I explain, based on my research into potentially hundreds or thousands of different viewpoints, different concepts, ancient cultures, different methods, and I've put it all into one kind of giant 1 hour long video. So I think you're gonna like that. So yeah, check it out. It's in the description.